That's why it was so important to me to get out and teach it and to get out and demonstrate, lead by example. Like, here's what being vulnerable means. We're not grabbing a guitar and singing Kumbaya around a campfire, although that'd be very nice, but we're not going to do that. This is about, being open about who we are, about our strengths and weaknesses, mine included. And the whole company knows my strengths and weaknesses because I talk about it all the time. I'm not afraid of it. I've leaned into it, and it's at once humbling you as a leader, and secondly, it takes a ton of weight off your shoulders. Because you now don't have to be the font of all knowledge. You now don't have to look like you know all the answers. And as any leader who's listening to this knows, you don't. We don't know all the answers.
No.
We don't have all the answers to everything. But people look at you and they expect you to.
Yeah.
And that is a ton of weight to carry.
My gosh.
Leadership is lonely as hell as it is.
Yeah.
You don't need that weight on you as well.
This is the Organizational Health Advantage podcast with Keith Hadley and James Felton, principal consultants at Table Group. They're in the business of coaching leaders to build strategic focus and cultural alignment that leads to amazing results. Welcome to the Org Health Advantage.
Hello and welcome back to the Organizational Health Advantage. I am Keith Hadley and I'm the co-host. My good friend James Felton is the other host. He's not joining us today, but I am super excited to be joined by a good friend, a long-term client. I would say a good client and a long-term friend. I should probably switch that up.
Yeah.
He is the president of Midtown Athletic Clubs. If you're from Chicago, you definitely recognize that. But if you're from a lot of other cities, you would also recognize that. But Jon Brady, it is awesome to have you back on the Organizational Health Advantage. We've had you here before.
Thank you, Keith. It's very nice to be back, and nice to see you. And it's a shame we haven't got James with us, but
I know. Next time.
The two of us will make it work.
Yeah. Okay. So for people who don't know anything about Midtown Athletic Clubs, just give us the high level. Set the context for this organization that you run.
We own and operate premium tennis and athletic clubs across the United States and Canada.
Awesome.
How's that? That's like question 4.
That was question 4. You're right.
Yeah.
It was very descriptive. Well done.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And what would I experience if I walked into one of your clubs? Like, what would I notice?
Yeah, so we run luxury clubs, luxury health clubs. They're all inclusive, like a resort, really.
Yeah.
They include boutique fitness studios across the entire range of the fitness industry under one roof. Swimming pools, indoor and outdoors. Restaurants, bars, hotel as well. We operate hotels within the club environment.
Amazing.
And just really we used to describe ourselves as a third space for people, or third place, but I think we've been promoted since COVID to second place. So we do a lot of people come in and work from the clubs as well. So they come in, bring their laptops, get a workout in, or swim, or have lunch. And work from the club too. So we have a big working space community. We call it the library.
Yep.
It's a newer concept that we've developed, and so the club gets used in a multitude of ways. Yeah.
Hey, give us some Midtown Athletic Clubs by the numbers. What are we looking at here in terms of just scope of operations?
In terms of like revenues and things?
No, just whatever just to put us in the right ballpark. How many people you have, clubs,
50,000,
whatever you think about in terms of important.
Sure. 50,000 members. So
oh my gosh.
Across the clubs, we have 8 clubs, so there's 8 of them, 50,000 members, adults and kids, and about 2,500 teammates.
Wow. Amazing. Okay. Last question, just for context. What would you say your competitors would be envious of, or what would they hate about you guys?
What would they hate about us? We tend to not. So I can answer it 2 ways. We tend to not consider other people or other companies competitors. We don't look at the competitive landscape in terms of they're doing this, so we should do that. We look at what we're doing,
Yeah.
and how we can be better. And we spend a lot of time communicating with members and associates across the company
Yeah.
to figure out, what it is that we can do that is a little bit better, a little bit of a gradual improvement, the Kaizen theory
Yeah.
of continual growth and continual improvement. So we sort of compete with ourselves.
Okay.
I guess from an outsider's perspective, if you were looking at us as another company in our industry, you would probably look at us and go, well, I wish I had their facilities. People look at the outside and look at the clubs, and they're large clubs.
Yeah.
They have, they're very high end, premium fixtures and fittings, and I think people look at it that way, and they see the clubs. What they don't see, and what I'm more proud of, is the people underneath that or within that space that are purpose focused, that are locked in, bone deep on our core values and behaviors, and who operate so collaboratively,
Yeah.
to make things look easy or look seamless.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's a little bit like a swan gliding across the lake. You don't see the legs underneath, running across that. So that's what I would say.
Amazing. You have ruined me for life for any other clubs. I had a recent experience up in Canada, not at your club, obviously. It was kind of across the border from Buffalo, and it was a beautiful place. Emphasized maybe squash more than tennis, but it had the same deal. It was like tennis, restaurants. I'm sorry, hotel, restaurants, a fitness club, and I walked in, and I was just walking around. I was like, I don't know. It's not that great.
I'm pleased we were able to do that for you.
I was like, if Midtown came here, I can already see the changes they would make. And it was a beautiful place. I'm not disparaging at all, but it was a beautiful place. So I was looking around, I was like, but it's not here. It's here.
Yeah.
Okay. So 2018, I want to just set a little bit of context. So what we love about this series that we're doing with Org Health Advantage is we get to bring our friends and our clients on just to tell your own story of transformation and what you've done at Midtown Athletic Clubs. And I just want to give our listeners my first impression of Jon Brady, which was a phone call that we had in Chicago. And you called and right away you asked me, like, what was my opinion on leading indicators? And I am rarely stumped, because usually there's like a range of what the topics are in these calls, and I'm an extrovert, so I get to start thinking. But I remember just like this long pause. I was like, I'm sorry. What are you asking me about? Like, I don't know. It was like, you were ranging in on a set of problems that you were trying to fix or opportunities you were trying to grasp. And it was like, what are the leading indicators that you should be looking at? And then we started talking more about the company and about the team. And I remember at the team, you said, okay, there's 18 of us. And I was like, okay, tell me about your meetings. And it was like, hey, we have this weekly meeting with all 18, and we walk through our leading indicators. And I remember I was like, I'm not sure exactly where to go in this conversation, but you know what? How far away are you right now? Like, maybe I could just drive you out. Like, let's get in your office and let's sit down and start talking. So I'll let you pick up the story from there, because it was fantastic. And I've come to just admire your leadership. It takes a healthy leader to embrace organizational health. People think we work with broken leaders. We don't. We don't even work with really broken organizations, because it takes a healthy leader and a healthy org to then say, okay, there's something here we want to do more with. So pick up the story. What were you going through? What were you trying to solve? And then we're going to go from there.
Yeah, good. I'd preface that by saying, before you came into the office to see me, I was so proud of myself for writing up on that whiteboard. If you remember the whiteboard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I listed out, I had a matrix of all of the KPIs that we were monitoring across all 18 direct reports. So I had 18 direct reports, all presenting between 3 and 5 KPIs each in a weekly meeting that lasted sometimes between 2 and 4 hours every week.
Very thorough.
Very thorough, where the 18 people probably got the grand total of about 5 minutes each to speak. It was just ridiculous in hindsight.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But it had come about, actually, interestingly enough, from reading Alan Mullally's book.
Yeah. Great book.
And so trying to, look at how he was grappling with changing forward into a healthy organization at that time under pretty difficult circumstances. And, using the BPR format, which was what he used in order to gain clarity and alignment around what he was trying to do with Ford. And so, I'd set that up. I'd read the book. I figured this, sounds great. Got to be good. I'm struggling to keep on top of all of my direct reports and what they're doing, and so we decided to try and implement this system. Well, we did it for about 6 or 7 months before enough people came banging on the door saying, "Jon, this is not working. This is." I was super excited about it. I was super happy. Like it solved my problem.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And I didn't have enough hands-on. I didn't have enough time and my day was spread so thinly that I was not being productive in anything. I was being ultra box checky. And so I was checking a lot of boxes, a lot of KPI boxes, 18 times 5. I don't know what that is, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And, red, yellow, and greening them and then following up with meetings and stuff like that. So I felt good, but everybody else felt terrible.
Right.
And I, I recognized that, that this was not about me.
Right.
This was about the organization and what's best for the organization. And this was obviously not it. Which is when I happened to get on a plane from our club in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale Airport. It's a Barbara's bookstore. Shout out for Barbara's bookstore.
Yes.
Right in the terminal next to the gate C2. I remember it very vividly because I sat there and picked up Pat's book, The Advantage.
Oh,
just come out. I'd read 5 Dysfunctions of the Team earlier and loved it and then forgotten about it, basically. And picked up The Advantage and thought, oh, this has got to be, I read this on the plane home and check it out because I like the fable style storytelling that Pat does. I got off the plane in Chicago and called Table Group, called the office. I got through to somebody, a very nice individual, who redirected me back to you. And so
it was probably Danny. Shout out to Danny.
Shout out to Danny. Good job, Danny. And so and that's where it all started. And then I was looking for someone to help me. I didn't know what help I needed, but I knew I needed help.
Yeah.
So and as an organization, we needed help, and I'd been struggling with it for probably a year and a half, and bashing my head against a brick wall and trying a number of different things without success.
Yeah.
And so I was getting to a point where, I was exasperated. I wasn't productive. I wasn't helpful for the organization.
Yeah.
I was a bottleneck in most cases, and we just weren't making any progress. And I was just feeling like I was failing.
Yeah.
And so, and failing the organization. And that didn't appeal to me in the slightest.
Yeah.
So you have,
yeah. Oh no, go ahead.
So you coming in and I put up all those KPIs and I said, look, I've got a KPI problem. I've got to streamline my KPIs and restructure all of this. Can you help me with that? And you said, you don't have a KPI problem. You have an organizational structure problem.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning, and you made me rub it all off. And I was like most upset at the time. I had to spray and wipe my whiteboard down. And I'm like, oh God, that took me ages to put that up there. And then we started with the circles. And we started looking at management structure, and we started looking at Team 1 and Team 2.
Yeah.
And that really was the beginning of a light bulb moment.
Yeah.
An epiphany, really, for the organization.
Yeah. Well, what's amazing about that story is like your ability to know to measure what matters, your ability to do that, your ability to know the metrics that matter to the organization and to track those, like that was a source of strength. But I love the reference to Alan Mulally, because then what you did was like, all right, I actually need a team at the center. Yeah. And then we need to have a focus. And that was something Alan did so well. It doesn't always come out in that BPR process. But like he had his whole strategy on like one little card that was the size of a business card.
Or
One forward, and so it like that the other end of that spectrum is like on the tail end he had like 1,000 things he was measuring every week. On the other end he had a simple 3x5 card with the clarity of the org and with good team structure. So Jon, I'm gonna force you to brag on yourself a bit. So we always encourage leaders that, like, hey, whatever we do, let's just do it on purpose. Like, let's make a decision in a meeting or in a quarter or in a year. Like, let's do some things on purpose that are going to put this organization in the best chance to succeed. What were some of the things that you did on purpose in that first season, but especially like as we then kind of go over into, like, because you've been at this now for 8 years?
yeah, 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 7, 8 years. So what were some of the intentional things that you chose to do as a leader that ended up having positive impact?
I mean, I think the biggest thing was choosing my team, choosing the structure. So I got to choose who I wanted on my team, and by default, who I didn't want on my team.
Yeah, that was tough.
And it was hard. You know, you're going from 18 down to 6. You know, and this, in the cases we're now at 7. We've added one, but it's we're making that decision was tough, and recognizing that, you know, if there's a reason that this person shouldn't be on your team, there's probably a reason that person isn't the right fit for what you want to do going forward. Maybe they were a great fit for what you were doing previously, but not going forward. So that was intentional and difficult. And then the change management process of announcing that, communicating with the teams, and then flowing or cascading the structure down through all of the other operating parts of the business. So we made the decision, or I made the decision, I guess, in the bragging thing. I made the decision that all the clubs were going to follow the same structure. So every operating element of our business was going to follow exactly the same structure, exactly the same meeting structure, and was going to be built the same way. And so you, as a general manager of one of our business units or our clubs, you could have no more than 6 people on your leadership team, and most of them had 12.
Oh, yeah.
So they were going through, I forced them to go through the same process that I went through. And that was hard on them, but they did it with my support and the team that I built with the support of that team as well. So we were able to then, you know, explain why it was so important that everyone had the opportunity to have a voice around the table. And that, you know, we were going to go through this process, and it was going to be hard, and it was going to be okay. That you know, that was tough.
So you decided we're going to have smaller teams at every level. I'm going to brag on you for something else that you did that I have never seen another leader do. You know, we get pushback on our meeting model all the time because people already have a way that they meet, and sometimes they hate it, but they don't want to change it. And so we offer up, hey, there's a simple meeting cadence, a meeting structure. You embraced it, but the thing you did that I've never seen another leader do is then you physically went to every location and you taught those teams the meeting cadence.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't bring us in to teach them how to do it. You yourself went and taught them how to do it. Tell me about that experience and the impact that had.
Yeah. That was a really good decision. Actually, in hindsight, I decided that I needed to teach people. I needed to coach people. We talk a lot about coaching and teaching and developing people as a company. And since I was the one who had the most exposure to the table group and the most exposure through you and James to all of the things that we were going to implement and had started to implement, it was, you know, my responsibility to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to face me and put me on the spot and put me under pressure and challenge me. And I also wanted to help our leaders learn how to do this, and then to show them that it was okay not to have it perfect from the get-go. That because when I remember the first meeting I ran for our senior leadership team, that we've newly created team in our club in Montreal, in Canada, I sat down with the team and started going through the structured meeting, the way the table group, delivers. And the first lightning round was like 15 minutes long. And because everyone was like, this is okay. So maybe it's not so much lightning. Maybe it's something. Maybe it's just rain. And so I was like, well, I was like, guys, stop. I think we just have to stop the meeting for a second.
Yeah.
We restart, and they were like, "What?" I'm like, "We need to restart because I'm not doing this right. This is not how it's supposed to go. I need, I'm learning this on the fly."
Yeah.
And I have not got this right for you, and I want to make sure we get it right. And so they were I'm asking for your forgiveness or the understanding I'm learning this with you.
Yeah.
And so I think what that did was it just breaks down barriers. It opens the door for questions and for challenge.
Yeah.
And for stuff that I didn't have all the answers for.
There's so many things I love about that story, but I love that you slowed them down and you wasted another 10 minutes of their time that probably has resulted in saving them hours and hours of time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like you just got to go slow to go fast.
Yeah.
I had a client recently say the phrase, leaders need to be teachers.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what you live. Leaders need to be teachers. Right. Yeah.
You've got to, the benefit you have as a leader is your ability to, help people develop and grow. I heard a quote from Simon Sinek that resonated. He said, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's incredibly important for people to remember. And it's an important development, I think, in my journey as well, over the time with the table group. And I think one of the things that I have evolved most in is really taking care of the people in my charge and helping, developing and growing them.
Would you tell the story? I've told the story because it's also one of my favorite Midtown Athletic Club memories, but I want you to tell it from your perspective. Fast forward a couple of years now, at one of your big leadership events, you had 100 plus people in a room, and you were rolling out core values, and you had everybody call somebody. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and everybody call somebody. Yeah.
So tell that story because it's living out this quote of taking care of those in your charge.
Yeah, so we were going through a process of identifying people who we felt represented the core values of the business, but weren't in the room. So they weren't in the senior leadership teams of any of the business units or clubs or the corporate office senior teams. And so, we started going through it and listing people. We're listing core values. We went through all of our core values and who resonates, who are our people that stand out. And we came up with a list of about 120 odd people. I can't remember the exact number, but there were a lot of people for different core values. And some were just rock stars and had multiple core values. And it was, it was a bit of a workshop type of environment. And then, we gave everyone 10 minutes or whatever it was and stopped everybody and said, okay, now I want you to take out your cell phones and I want you to call each of those people. And everyone just looked at me like I was insane. Like, what?
They're like, okay, theoretically, I understand your point. You're like, no.
No. Everybody, take a person. They're like, well, I don't have their phone number. I said, well, you've got your laptops. We've got a central HR system. Find it. Call them. You've got 15 minutes now. And so everybody's like rushing off, finding a corner of the room, calling the club to get put through to somebody to pull somebody out of a meeting or whatever, or a training session or something. And then, what happens is that creates an incredible memory for a lot of people. And what we're trying to do, what I think one of my roles is trying to create a storyline around our core purpose and our core values.
Yeah.
That people, because people remember stories way better than they remember facts, figures. And this is now woven into our story, our org health story about the time. Do you remember the time when we did that?
Yeah.
How ridiculous, but how awesome was that, And it made a point for a lot of people.
I couldn't believe it. I mean, you're right. It was magical, and it was like an electrifying experience. When they came back from it, and you just say, "Hey, how'd that go?" It
Yeah.
was like people just wouldn't stop talking. It was like
Yeah.
the energy level went from like already a fairly high,
Yeah.
now, if you're at Midtown Athletic Clubs, you go to a meeting. They start the meeting with some kind of exercise. Like I got more fit during that event than anything else. But like the energy level went from like
Yeah.
an 8 to like a 12.5 on a
Yeah.
scale of 1 to 10, and it was. But you're right.
Yeah.
It's not. I think we often we often see leaders that will communicate the company's core values in a PowerPoint. They will talk about them. Maybe they go to the next level where they actually recognize some, core values award winners. It's like, oh, that's good. Maybe that PowerPoint finds its way into their onboarding deck. But what you just said is incredibly powerful. How do you create experiences and stories around those things? And that's such a simple thing to do. Like just call that
Yeah.
person, tell
I,
them.
I'd follow up on that, Keith, and just with another story around the same sort of thing. At our leadership summit last year, so we hosted an annual leadership summit. I say
Yeah.
annual, we've done three of them because COVID
Hey,
got in the
that's
way.
annual. Okay.
Yeah. Three. So we're on
Yeah.
our third. And last year we decided we want to recognize some of our team members who had been nominated as but maybe not received the
Hmm.
Associate of the Month. We do an Associate of the Month. It's all nominated by members and
Hmm.
other associates. So you send in a little email blurb and what happened and da da da. Da. And we had recognized obviously 12 people, but we had, I don't know, 70 odd, 80 odd other people that we hadn't recognized in that way. So we decided we were going to do a Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So we got a photograph, black and white photograph of everybody, and we took the blurb that was given about that person. We put them on giant boards. I mean, 3.5, 4 foot high, 2 foot wide. Blew them up and put them all on easels
Mm.
outside the conference room. We did it at 5:30 in the morning before anyone was up, and on the second day. So we'd done a full day and a half by this point.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting drained and feeling tired and what have you, and the cocktails the evening before probably didn't help. But we put these up. We lined the whole corridor leading down the hallway, leading down to the conference room from the hotel in the hotel. And so when people got up in the morning and they were coming towards that, there was just all these faces on both sides, all the way down. And 100% the best moment of 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 that summit was watching people tear up. There was people were crying. I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. It was so amazing,
Yeah.
and it came about from our core values. Like we've got all these wonderful people, we haven't had a chance to recognize them all,
Hmm.
and so we made them do the same thing. So we then said we got everybody in the room and we sat around and said, "How cool was that coming this morning?" Okay, somebody went, "Can we call them?" I'm like, 100%, absolutely, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
some of the people happened to be there who,
Yeah.
because they'd been nominated,
Right.
which was great. We didn't have to call them; we could go and talk to them.
Yeah. Just high five them. Oh man, that's
That was
incredible. That's
wonderful.
incredible. So I'm gonna ask you about your organizational clarity, but I'm gonna do it in an unusual way. We always say that the primary, who's the audience of our clarity? We say the leadership team. Like we need to be clear for ourselves why we exist, what we do, how we're trying to run this place, what it is we're trying to do differently. So that's a primary audience. Secondary audience, we'd say, yeah, it's our employees. Like our employees should know our clarity because they're the ones that we entrust to make decisions about
Yeah.
people or make strategic or tactical decisions. How would I'm guessing that some of your members, right? Is that what you call them? Yeah,
Members.
members. I'm sure some of them actually know some of your clarity, but how would your members experience your clarity? Whether they could memorize it or they even knew the vocabulary words for it, but just kind of like walk us through your purpose, your values, your anchors. You've already given us your business definition.
Yeah.
How
Start.
how do your members, your
Yeah, sure.
customers experience your clarity?
Our clarity, our purpose is to inspire people to transform their lives.
Hmm.
And and we talk about that as a duty of care,
Mm.
much in the way that educators talk about, a duty of care to the children in their charge and
Mm-hmm.
that they are responsible for. We talk about that in terms of our members. Our members are giving us their disposable income, their hard-earned money, and expecting, to get some outcome from joining the club or being a part of this community. And so I think how members would feel. I mean, we don't have it on a plaque anywhere,
Yeah.
but I would hesitate to say that 98, 99%, maybe even 100%, I'd go out on a limb and say of our associates know and could repeat our purpose and why it's important. Not just repeat it, but understand it. We talk about it all the time, and we talk about it in terms of decisions we make. We talk about it in terms of how we operate and the operating process changes. Is this going to help our members transform their lives? Is this going to help our associates inspire more people to transform their lives? And transformation doesn't just mean physical. It can be mental, it can be social, emotional, spiritual, all of those sort of things. And people think, well, how can you do that at a health club? And I, what we often reference is that, we're growing up with the loneliest generation of people that there has ever been on the planet. And there are a number of ways that we can help build community, and that we can help build connections with people, and that we can help people feel a sense of belonging that they don't get from other places, from work, or sometimes family, even because they've moved away, or there's been trouble, or there's been all sorts of reasons for that. And so, how would a member understand or sense that? I think in the sense of care, the duty of care we provide. We constantly talk to it, and we don't have scripts.
Good.
I'm a firm believer in people being authentic and being real. And so we don't give people scripts. We say to people, if somebody is coming into the club, as a really basic example, someone's coming into the club, I do not want it to feel like you're getting on an airplane.
Yeah. Right.
If someone's leaving the club, I don't want it to feel like you're getting off an airplane. And so it has to be, you have to feel something for people in order to work for Midtown and feel comfortable here. And we will embrace you as your authentic self and your individual self, as long as you bring that with you. And so, we'll often talk to people about, look, just engage, interact, ask how their day's been. Tell them you look like their boots. So I like the way we had a situation. I was explaining this to the front desk team at Chicago Club one day, and we now call it the Red Boots story. And a lady was walking out of the club. I happened to be on the front desk trying to encourage them to engage with people more authentically and more, rather than saying goodbye, thanks for coming, like, the airplane example. And this lady was walking out, and she had on these red cowboy boots, and they were awesome.
Yeah.
And she was walking out, and she was looking at her phone or doing something, and she was walking out. And I just said, "Oh my God, I love your boots." She just looked up and stopped mid-stride, turned and looked at me and went, "Really? They're brand new. I love them. I just bought them. They're my favorite purchase ever." And I said, "I just think they look amazing. You look great in them."
Yeah.
And she was so happy and then left the club. You know what? She will tell that story like I'm telling that story.
Yeah.
Because it was a human to human authentic interaction. You can't, that doesn't happen all the time. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you've got to be looking for ways to connect with people.
Now, what are your core values? Because I guarantee that what you just told is like an example of something.
True. Our core values, we have 5 core values. They're win together.
Yep.
Glass half full. Passionate about helping others. Better than yesterday. And kind.
Yeah. So what does that look like in action? I love your boots.
I love your boots. Well, look, I love your boots is about being kind.
Yeah.
It's about, passionate about helping others, maybe helping in a connection way, like we're connecting with people.
Yeah.
And it's, I think more than anything else about being kind to other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I do want you to keep going because I want to hear about your strategic anchors. But I just want to interrupt. Like, you get this at such a natural, intuitive level, and I'm just curious your thoughts because you meet a lot of people and you travel a lot of places. You interact with a lot of other leaders. You're kind of a big deal in the athletic club space. I know that. Why
Yeah.
don't other leaders get this? What are they missing?
You look, Keith, I have spoken about this, about org health,
Yeah,
so many times at so many retreats and summits and conferences. I've asked to get on the agenda
yeah,
to various places. I've spoken in front of 10 people. I've spoken in front of 100 people about
yeah,
this. I have yet to convince anybody that I'm not very good at selling this, which is possible. Or I think people think that it is just too simple, too easy to be, too good to be
yeah.
true. They put it in
Mm,
that bucket.
mm, mm.
I also think that it's hard. I often say to people how I start with this, and maybe this is maybe this is where I'm going wrong. I say, look, this is really simple.
Yeah,
It's really easy to understand. I can teach it to a class of 8th graders in 30 minutes,
hmm,
but it's really hard to
yeah,
deliver on.
yeah,
It's really hard to execute.
yeah, yeah,
And so, that be able to hold those two concepts at the same time, I
yeah,
think is difficult for people.
yeah,
We think
yeah,
it's simple, but it's hard. That
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Maybe I'm losing them at the beginning of my presentation. I've just thought about it.
Well,
But
I think you're right. And honestly, like that's why we're doing this podcast is because people can hear it from us. They can read it in the book, but it's like handing somebody a cookbook. This is an example that Pat just said at one of our conferences. We had a leader come and present, and he's like, Pat was like, "Oh my gosh, like the way that you have applied these models, it's awesome." He said, "All I did was write a cookbook." And I feel like you took the cookbook and you opened up a restaurant with your own ingredients and your own food. And then you improved on it. And it's like, you're making the most amazing food. It's like, you're right. It's these ideas are so simple, but they're really hard. But on the other hand, they're not that hard. I mean, I love your boots. Let me
yeah,
fly to
no,
your facility and teach you how to run a
not
meeting.
that hard.
And like,
No,
oh, that lightning round sucked. Let's do it again. It's like, it's
yeah.
not that hard. But I think you do have to be disciplined about it and
I think that
intentional. You have to
I
do it on
think it's
purpose.
I think it's intentional. I
Yeah.
think you have to be intentional and you have to have discipline.
Yeah.
Our anchors are resort-like environments. We have one of our anchors is
Check.
resort-like environments, personal attention.
Mm.
We really focus on personal attention,
Yeah.
and active communities.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
building active communities, and so if things that we do or decisions that we make don't check those three boxes, we don't do them,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
also takes discipline. You've
Yeah.
got to know what is not you
Yeah.
and not what you do,
Yeah.
as much as you know what you do.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's where a lot of people get stuck, because
Yeah.
a lot of people will just, there's a new, and I call myself a recovering shiny object leader,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I used to be a very shiny object chaser.
Yep.
The story I tell, how I describe myself in the company is that, imagine me as a puppy in a
Mm-hmm.
backyard with two squirrels on opposite fences. What is going on? Where am I going?
Yeah.
Backwards and forwards,
Yeah.
side to side, non-stop.
Yeah.
And that was definitely me as a
Yeah.
leader. And it's taken time for me to become more disciplined and
Yeah.
evolved into
Yeah.
knowing what we do and what
Yeah.
we don't do.
Right.
So
As I
having
recall on Myers-Briggs, you're ENTJ. Is that right?
right, I am, yes.
Yeah. So like you also bring to whatever choice you make a level of confidence that I'll get it done.
Yep.
But a lot of ENTJs don't slow down to think through the
Yes.
details or to slow down and think, okay, but these are people in my charge.
That's exactly right. But the other side of that is, as a ENTJ, you need to build a team of people around you
Yeah.
who can call you out and feel
Right.
comfortable slowing you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, one of the key things, if I think, what is the most important thing that I've done with
Yeah.
organizational health, is that build that team. and build that trust within that team so that we can be vulnerable with each other. We can be open with each other. We can push back on each other, and me included.
Yeah.
And I think that is, that's so critical. You don't want people afraid to put their hands up to say, I made a mistake. You don't want people afraid to say, well, what if? Or what if we did this different? Or why do we do it that way?
Yeah.
Or how come this has to be like this?
Yeah.
Because if you get into that situation where people aren't asking those questions, you're losing the impetus and the opportunity that might come from reviewing some of these, long-held beliefs or desires or, programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you want that all the way through the organization. That's why it was so important to me to get out and teach it and to get out and demonstrate, lead by example. Like, here's what being vulnerable means. We're not grabbing a guitar and singing Kumbaya around a campfire, although that'd be very nice, but we're not going to do that. This is about, being open about who we are, about our strengths and weaknesses, mine included. And the whole company knows my strengths and weaknesses because I talk about it all the time. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
I've leaned into it, and it's at once humbling.
Yeah.
You as a leader, and secondly, it takes a ton of weight off your shoulders. Because you now don't have to be the font of all knowledge. You now don't have to look like you know all the answers. And as any leader who's listening to this knows, you don't. We don't know all the answers.
No.
We don't have all the answers to everything. But people look at you and they expect you to.
Yeah.
And that is a ton of weight to carry. Leadership is lonely as hell as it is.
Yeah.
You don't need that weight on you as well.
I feel like you just gave a gift to every leader that listens to this, is because you're right. And I think every leader struggles with that weight, but then they make the wrong decision, which is like, I must have it all together. I must do everything right. I must have all the answers. And what you just said is a gift. It's like, no,
I often,
who are we kidding?
Totally. I have to say, look, the higher up you go in an organization, the further up you go, and the bigger the organization is, this is actually even more amplified. The higher up you go in an organization, the dumber you get.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what my CIO knows. I certainly don't know what our app development team's doing in coding. I don't know what my CMO knows, and I certainly don't know what our lifecycle marketing manager knows about CRM communication, automated communication. I have a big picture idea of what I think we should be doing.
Yeah.
I can draw a big picture. I can paint a picture, and I can put some guidelines and arrows down a roadmap, but getting stuff done that helps achieve that, I don't know that.
Yeah.
And I don't have those answers. What you have to do as a leader is paint the picture in broad strokes and then let others come in and paint the detail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the detail that moves you forward.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm learning that we either need to bring you on just like once a quarter. We certainly need to get you back on this. There's so many things I want to explore, but I think we're going to leave it with that mic drop right there. Jon, thank you so much for coming back. I definitely want to get you back on this. I can't wait to share this episode out with the leaders that I'm working with right now so that they can learn from the choices you've made along the way.
Right, Keith, I'm really happy to help anytime you want me. I'm here. You know that. I'm a big fan. So, and we should absolutely grab a beer.
Oh, yeah, of course. Green Street Smoked Meat. Let's go back.
There you go. Totally.
All right. Okay. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Organizational Health Advantage. Please like this episode. Share it with some folks. Grab the link on YouTube and send it out. And we'd love to hear your feedback. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Org Health Advantage. Your hosts, Keith and James, are helping leaders change the world of work and invite you to share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. For more resources on building stronger teams and organizational health, check out tablegroup.com.